It was a cloudy Tuesday in rural Ohio. The smell of fried chicken drifted through the small KFC off Route 58. Behind the counter, Maya Carter, the 27-year-old manager, was juggling orders, training a new cashier, and answering a phone call from a supplier who was late again. Maya was known by the locals for her warm smile, but behind it lived the weight of unpaid bills, a younger brother in college, and a mother recovering from surgery. She didn't complain. She couldn't afford to, but every day felt like a quiet battle. Around 1:30 p.m., the store's double-glass doors opened. In walked two men in dark suits, scanning the room. Behind them, unmistakably, was Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. The restaurant froze. Even the fryer's hiss seemed to pause. Maya blinked twice, thinking maybe her exhaustion was playing tricks on her. But no, there he was, casually removing a red baseball cap and stepping up to the counter. Customers began whispering, phones raised to capture the surreal moment. Trump smiled politely, ordering a bucket of original recipe chicken, mashed potatoes, and biscuits. Maya's hands trembled as she rang him up. She had never met a president, let alone served one fried chicken. As she handed him the receipt, her mind wasn't on the celebrity in front of her. It was on a folded note in her apron pocket, a note she had written weeks ago, unsure if she'd ever give it to anyone. Now, staring into the eyes of a man who could change lives with a signature, she felt an unexpected surge of courage. She knew this was her only chance. Maya's fingers brushed against the crumpled piece of paper in her apron. She had written it one night after closing the store, sitting alone in the back office. At the time, she thought it was silly, just a desperate expression of her frustrations and fears. It wasn't political. It wasn't even about her. It was about her employees, the high schoolers working for minimum wage, the single mom doing double shifts, the elderly dishwasher whose Social Security wasn't enough to pay rent. The note was simple, heartfelt, and personal. Sir, I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for attention for people to notice the quiet struggles of those who work hard but can't get ahead. We keep smiling, but we're drowning. Now, as Trump handed her his credit card, Maya's heart pounded. She could slip the note in with the receipt. She could do it without a word. But what if it ended up in the trash? What if he never read it? The Secret Service agent standing nearby scanned her hands, clearly alert to any unusual movement. Maya swallowed hard, forcing herself to act normal. She printed the receipt, placed it in the bag, and hesitated just a second too long. Everything okay? Trump asked, his tone casual. She smiled faintly. Yes, sir. Just making sure everything's perfect for you. But her other hand was already tightening around the folded paper. For the next 2 minutes, Maya's mind was a storm. She rang up 2 more customers while Trump stepped aside, waiting for his order. Every few seconds, she glanced over, wondering if she had already missed her moment. Her assistant manager, Sam, noticed her distracted state. You okay? He whispered. Maya nodded quickly, but inside she was thinking, what's the worst that could happen? He says, no. He ignores me. When she saw Trump pick up his bucket and start walking toward the door, her chest tightened. This was it. Now or never. Mr. President, she called out, her voice louder than she intended. Everyone in the store turned. Trump stopped mid-step, raising his eyebrows in surprise. Maya stepped around the counter, holding the note like it was something fragile. I know you're busy, she began, her voice trembling. But I wrote something. It's important to me, to a lot of people I work with. The agents tensed, but Trump held up a hand to signal them to wait. He took the note from her without hesitation. I'll read it, he said simply, giving her a nod before walking out. Maya stood frozen, unsure if she had just made the biggest mistake of her life or the most important decision she'd ever take. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. Every sound from the street made her think of a black SUV pulling up with men in suits, asking her questions. What if the note came off as rude? What if it was seen as unprofessional? She replayed her words over and over in her head, wishing she could have explained more. Meanwhile, social media had already exploded. A customer's video of her handing Trump the note had gone viral. The clip was everywhere. News sites, TikTok, Twitter. Comment sections were a mix of curiosity and wild speculation. Sam texted her at 1 a.m. "You're all over the internet. You okay?" She typed back, "I don't know yet." Her mom, still recovering from surgery, called in the morning. "Maya, honey, did you just talk to the president yesterday?" "Yeah, Mom." Well, her mom chuckled. "Make sure you tell him to fix the price of gas while he's at it." Maya laughed weakly, but deep down she knew this was about more than gas prices. It was about real people whose lives were invisible in the national conversation. Still, she had no idea if Trump had even opened the note. 2 days later, while Maya was doing inventory in the storage room, her phone buzzed. The caller ID showed a Washington, D.C. number. Her hand shook as she answered. "Hello." A deep official voice spoke. "Ms. Carter, this is Special Assistant to the President, Mark Delaney. The President read your note. He'd like to meet with you." Maya's breath caught. Are you sure you have the right person?" "Yes, ma'am. We'll send transportation tomorrow morning. The President would like to visit your KFC personally." Maya was speechless. "Wait here? Why here?" "Because he said, if I'm going to talk about her note, I'm going to see her world." She hung up in a daze. Sam nearly dropped a box of fries when she told him. "Maya, this is insane. Do you know what this could mean?" Maya did know, or at least she thought she did. But she also knew the pressure that came with it. By morning, the store had to be spotless, and more importantly, she had to find the courage to explain everything she had written face to face. The next day, black SUVs rolled into the parking lot. The sight alone drew a small crowd. Secret Service agents took positions around the building, and in walked Donald Trump, smiling as if he'd just stepped into a friend's kitchen. Maya, he greeted warmly, extending his hand. She shook it, still feeling surreal. "You've got a good place here," he said, looking around. "Smells great." They sat in a booth, cameras flashing in the distance. Trump took the folded note out of his pocket. "I've been carrying this since Tuesday. You didn't just write a complaint, you told a story." Maya felt her throat tighten. "It's not just my story. It's my team's. People think we're fine because we have jobs. But between rent, medical bills, and debt, a paycheck disappears fast." Trump listened intently, asking questions about wages, hours, and benefits. Maya spoke with surprising confidence, realizing that her years of listening to her staff had prepared her for this. Before leaving, Trump asked, "Can I come back tomorrow without the cameras?" Maya blinked. "Sure, but why?" "Because I want to meet everyone here properly." The next day, Trump returned. No media, no fanfare, just him and a few aides. He insisted on going behind the counter, shaking hands with every employee. He met Linda, a 52-year-old grandmother working the fry station to support her grandkids. He met Carlos, a teenager saving up for college, and Mr. Bennett, the 68-year-old dishwasher who still took the bus every day. Trump asked each of them about their life, not just their work. Maya watched her team open up in a way she had never seen before. At one point, Linda said quietly, "I've worked here for 8 years. Never thought I'd talk to a president. I just want people to know we're not lazy. We're just trying to survive." Trump nodded. "I hear you loud and clear." Maya realized this wasn't just a polite visit. He was absorbing everything. When he left that day, he turned to Maya and said, "I can't promise miracles, but I can promise I won't forget what I've seen here." Within a week, rumors swirled. Customers whispered about changes coming to KFC nationwide and a government program for food service workers. Maya didn't know what to believe. She hadn't heard directly from Trump since his visit, and part of her feared it had just been a kind gesture with no follow-up. Then one Friday morning, a letter arrived at the store addressed to her in elegant handwriting. She opened it with trembling hands. It read, "Maya, your note reminded me that real change starts with listening. I'm working on something that might help. Not just your store, but thousands like it. Keep doing what you're doing. I'll be in touch. Donald J. Trump." Her chest swelled with a strange mix of pride and pressure. Whatever was coming, she had been the spark. 3 weeks later, Trump stood at a podium during a small-town rally. To everyone's surprise, He called Maya up to stand beside him. "This," he told the crowd, "is Maya Carter. She manages a KFC. And she wrote me a note that made me stop and think. She reminded me of something we forget. The people who keep America running aren't just in big offices. They're right here wearing aprons, standing over hot fryers, smiling at customers while quietly carrying heavy burdens." The crowd cheered. Maya felt her face flush. Trump then announced a new pilot program offering expanded health care benefits and tax credits for small business employees in the food service industry. It wasn't everything Maya had hoped for, but it was a start. Not everyone was happy. Some accused her of seeking fame. Others claimed it was all staged. The internet can be cruel, and Maya saw comments that stung deeply. But when she considered ignoring it, Linda reminded her, "You didn't do this for them. You did this for us." Her team stood by her, and the local community rallied to her side. It was late. The store was closed, and the hum of the refrigerator was the only sound. Maya was counting the register when Mr. Bennett, the elderly dishwasher, lingered by the counter instead of heading out like usual. "Maya," he said softly, "I wanted to tell you something." He set down his worn baseball cap, his voice trembling slightly. "Because of that program," the president announced, "I finally went to the doctor. First time in years." She stopped counting and looked up, concerned. "They told me my blood pressure was dangerously high. If I'd kept going like I was, I might not have been here much longer. Now I'm on medication I can afford." Maya felt her throat tighten. "Mr. Bennett, that's incredible. I'm so glad you went." He smiled faintly, his eyes glistening. "You didn't just help me get a doctor's visit. You gave me more time with my grandkids. That note you wrote, it might have saved my life." When he left, Maya sat alone in the quiet, her heart heavier yet fuller than before. It was in that moment she realized this had never been about politics. It was about people. It was a cold December afternoon when Maya heard the familiar rumble of black SUVs outside the store. She wasn't expecting anyone, but when the doors swung open, there he was. Donald Trump, wearing his signature red cap and a broad smile. "Thought I'd stop by," he said casually, as though dropping in on an old friend. The customers stared in shock, whispering, but Trump waved off the cameras. "Not today. Today, I'm here for something else." He reached into a leather folder and pulled out a frame. Inside, perfectly preserved, was her original handwritten note. "You gave me this," he said, "and I've kept it close ever since. I want you to have this copy, so you remember that one voice can matter." Maya took it carefully, feeling the weight of the glass and the words inside. She didn't know what to say, so she simply nodded, her eyes shimmering. Before leaving, he leaned in slightly and said, "Keep speaking up. People are listening now." As the door closed behind him, Maya glanced at the frame again. It was a reminder that her courage on that one random afternoon had become something far bigger than herself. A few weeks after Trump's unexpected visit, Maya received a call from KFC's corporate headquarters. At first, she thought it was about a new promotional campaign, but the voice on the line said something that made her stop mid-step. "Maya, we've been following your story and your leadership," the HR representative began. "We'd like to offer you a regional manager position." Her heart skipped a beat. It was the kind of offer she never imagined getting, a higher salary, benefits, and the chance to oversee multiple stores. But it also meant leaving behind her team. She spent the evening pacing her small apartment, torn. How could she walk away from Linda, Carlos, and Mr. Bennett? But then she thought about how many more teams she could help if she accepted. The next day, she told Linda, half expecting disappointment. Instead, Linda grinned and hugged her tightly.
"Go, Maya.
You've already made this place better. Now do it for others." The decision was still bittersweet, but in her gut, she knew Linda was right. Change didn't have to stop at one store. The transition was overwhelming at first. As regional manager, Maya now traveled between a dozen KFC locations across Ohio. Each store had its own set of challenges: outdated equipment, understaffed shifts, and employees juggling multiple jobs just to make ends meet. But Maya carried something into every conversation that numbers and charts couldn't measure: empathy. She didn't just ask about sales targets. She asked about people's lives. How's your mom doing after surgery? Did you manage to get that car fixed? At one store, a young shift leader named Tanya confessed she was thinking about quitting because she couldn't afford her child's daycare. Instead of brushing it off, Maya connected her with a local assistance program. Tanya stayed, and her store's morale improved overnight. Maya began sending monthly reports to corporate detailing not just profits, but the real stories behind the uniforms. Quietly, she also sent occasional letters to the White House, updating them on how the program Trump had announced was actually working. Each time she hit send, she remembered that first folded note in her apron. One morning, after a long week of store visits, Maya returned to her small office to find an envelope with the presidential seal. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. Maya, you reminded me that leadership is listening. The changes we started are helping, but we still have work to do. Keep telling me what you see on the ground. Your voice matters. Donald J. Trump. Maya read it 3 times, hardly believing it was real. This wasn't just a thank you. It was an invitation to keep pushing. She pinned the letter beside the framed note on her wall. Together, they told a story, not of fame or politics, but of persistence. Maya decided she didn't want to be the only one carrying the torch. She started a mentorship program for young store managers across her region. Once a month, they'd gather for coffee. No corporate jargon, just real talk. They shared struggles, swapped ideas, and brainstormed ways to support their teams. Remember, Maya told them, it's not just about chicken. It's about people. Numbers keep the lights on, but people keep the doors open. She encouraged each manager to send their own note, whether to corporate, to a local leader, or even to the White House if they saw a problem worth fixing. 2 years after the first note, Trump visited Ohio for a rally. Maya didn't expect to see him, but as he scanned the crowd, his eyes landed on her. Maya Carter, he called into the microphone. The audience erupted in cheers. She walked up, heart pounding, and they exchanged a quick embrace. You still speaking up? He asked quietly. Always, she smiled. Later, in a quieter corner backstage, Trump said something that caught her off guard. You know, yours wasn't the only note I got that week, but it was the only one I couldn't stop thinking about. He explained that it wasn't just the words, it was the sincerity. Most letters ask for something big and flashy. Yours just asked me to notice. Maya realized then that it wasn't about the scale of the request. It was about the heart behind it. That night, Maya drove home under a sky scattered with stars. She thought about the first day she'd seen him walk into her store, about the trembling in her hands as she passed him that folded paper. Back then, she hadn't known if he'd read it. Now she knew it had started a ripple. Not a tidal wave, but enough to touch lives. Mr. Bennett's, Linda's, Tanya's, and her own. Years later, Maya's framed note still hung in her office. Young employees would ask about it, and she'd tell the story about courage, about listening, about the strange afternoon when the president walked into her store. But she always ended with the same words. You never know how far your voice can reach, but you'll never find out unless you use it. Moral change doesn't always start with a podium or a crowd. Sometimes it starts with a quiet note slipped into a bag of chicken and the courage to hope someone will read.